Good morning, data leaders. Paul from the Data Storytellers here. Today, I'm here with Michael Mouire, who's the head of data analytics at Ryanair out of Dublin. Great to have you with us.
Thanks very much, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
And to start with, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your journey to becoming the head of data analytics at Ryanair.
Cool. Well, I suppose it's a little different from some people in the fact that I don't actually have a strictly data background. So I actually did mechanical engineering in college, so I am a mechanical engineer, but I've never worked as one. And when I finished college, I actually worked in Vodafone. I finished college, started in Vodafone, where I worked in customer service. So I saw the customer service area of the business. I moved on to workforce planning, so using an awful lot of data to make sure that we were hitting customer service levels. Then I moved into marketing, where I moved into kind of campaign execution, so data from talking to our customers, using data to actually build audiences and talk to them. And from there, I moved to Paddy Power. So I worked in the marketing technology team, and one of the guys who I used to work with moved across to Ryanair, and it was like he needed somebody to do as a project manager. So I originally started in the team I'm currently in as a project manager, and then when the role came up about 5 years ago, I took over the data team. So whereas I always say to my guys, it's like I can't really do any of their jobs, but I had all my admin access taken away from me, because I said, if we need me to do something with admin access, we're in deep trouble. So it's a case of my journey has been one of actually using data to talk to customers mostly. And then in Ryanair, what it transformed into is not just talking to customers, but also making sure that the business themselves are now the customers. So a huge amount of the projects that we do in Ryanair are internal facing. So we do an awful lot of work for our operations. We look at fuel. We do some work with our commercial teams, some of our finance teams. So it is an interesting journey at the moment. So I don't know where it's going to finish up, but it's a good place at the moment.
Absolutely. And how have you seen, you've been with Ryanair for over 6 years now. How have you seen the role that data has played change over that time?
Well, I think in fairness to Ryanair, I think they've been very progressive. So the team structure has changed drastically in that time. So when I took over the team, it was about 14 people. Now it's just under 80. So from nearly a 5-fold increase in 5 years will tell you, to start off with, how Ryanair has embraced data. So Ryanair went very much from a very small, efficient company that could do a huge amount of its work in Excel, to suddenly going from 200 aircraft to 400 aircraft, and hopefully we'll end up at 650 aircraft in the next 5 or 10 years. So it was a case of, how could we help the business do their job easier? So there's an awful lot of tasks people are coming in going like, there's one example that we had in one of the departments where they were using 3,000 Excel files. So, and they had it in a particular format that they liked, so they used to go in and input whichever Excel file they wanted to. So we went over going like, we think we can do this in ClickView for you. So it was kind of, it started off being a little bit of, I would say black magic, because they were like going, do we trust you? But over the years, the way our structure works is that the developers in my team have a very good relationship with the business. So we don't really go too much for have loads of business analysts building up requirements, etc. We generally will get a ticket raised, and then the developer who's going to work on it will talk to the business. It doesn't always work, and sometimes you're led in wild goose chases. But what it's done is it's given the business a huge amount of faith in the work that the guys do, so that they will kind of come and request a specific developer to do a piece of work, because they're like, you understand what we're doing, and if you produce something, we're quite happy that what you produce is going to be right.
That's awesome. So what are you currently working on? What are you most excited about working on at Ryanair right now? Obviously, it's a tricky time for the airline industry. But what kind of business help are you offering at the moment that's really you're excited about?
Well, I suppose like our journey has been that we've we've kind of automated a huge amount of the reporting that Ryanair has done. So we've so essentially, as I said, business used to operate mainly on Excel files. We started to automate a huge amount of that. And then we moved into the data visualization side. So instead of just pumping out an Excel file or an SSR report, we would now build dashboards. So our main dashboard tool is Power BI at the moment, so the business love it. So we use Click and Power BI. So that kind of that did two things for us. The first thing that it did is like the business go like, I have a dashboard, that's what I interact with. The second thing it did for us is that it allowed us to structure our data sets. So there's a huge amount of data floating around an airline, but it's you have ops data, you have finance data, you have commercial data, and a lot of that came from many different data sources. So like we spent years essentially just grooming our data, finding out where it is, structuring it, making sure it's available for us. So where we are, so if you can kind of go, the nuts and bolts have been taken care of. Where we really are going for at the moment is optimization. So we've stood up an optimization team. We've two optimization teams actually. We've one in Madrid and one in Wrocław in Poland. So we are starting to really look at how can we optimize what goes on in an airline, because an airline is just a giant optimization problem. So it's a case of like you need to fly people, you need aircraft to fly them, and you need crew to staff them. So you need to make sure that you're rostering your aircraft correctly. You need to make sure that you're scheduling your aircraft correctly, and you need to make sure that your aircraft end up where they're meant to be. So we have a number of projects. We have a number of projects in the rostering area that we're working on with training and ops to get to more efficient rosters. We're doing a lot in training to make sure that pilots and cabin crew need to be kept current. So how you actually schedule their training, and we need to fly pilots around our network to go to different simulators. So we're doing a lot of work on that. We have done some work on big for us is fuel. So we fly at the moment, well, we fly two aircraft. But before we had the 8200s arrived, we used to just fly one aircraft, which is a 737-800. But they'd have 9 different engine configurations. So we were working on what was the optimal routes and profiles to have those aircraft actually fly on to reduce the actual the fuel usage within the fleet. So that was quite interesting. So our big kind of, you could say 2022 for Ryanair is optimization. We're doing a huge amount of optimization.
It definitely sounds like it. So for you personally then, what really interests you about working in data analytics? Because just looking at your background from what you said earlier, you had more of this marketing customer facing role that's evolved into the head of data analytics. So my first question on that would be, what makes you turn up to work with a smile on your face every day?
My team, first of all, the first thing that makes you turn up is I like my team. They're a fantastic group of people to work with. I love going to work every day. But if you're kind of talking about what of the role itself, like first of all, like I said I started with engineering, and it's like most engineers like numbers, and I like numbers, and I like the stories that numbers can tell. And a lot of we don't at times just produce the reports. There are some projects that we work on where we will actually look at the numbers and go, what's that telling us? And a great thing about Ryanair is if you see something, you can get it actioned very quickly. So it's not a case of you go through various layers of trying to get something done. If you see something, you can go to my boss, the CTO, John Hurley, and you can go, we've seen this, we think we should do an app, and we should act on it. And very quickly you can be, 2 weeks later, a week later, you could actually be, we saw something, we're going to make a change. And it's, as I said, I've mentioned some of the other companies I've worked in who are all great companies to work for, but they have tendency being a little bit larger in their terms of how do you get something to market. So there's many more layers that you have to go through to actually get something done. Whereas Ryanair, I found it's very, very agile. It's very, very quick. And the other part is I'm a bit of the phrase that it uses, an aerosexual. I quite like airplanes. So I work in an industry that I really, really like. And so the numbers that we get out of it, I find it hugely interesting. It's really interesting. And also, with COVID, as terrible as COVID has been for everybody, being in an airline, you can see very quickly, when a government makes a call, you can see your bookings drop off. You can see, and then you have to, so when so you can, even sometimes you can kind of see bookings will drop off or pick up based upon what rumors are going out there. So it's very interesting that way. So yeah, there's a lot about Ryanair that are like it's just interesting. And I think, and that's the major thing, as I say to my team, is like, once people start to get bored, that's when they need to start looking for a new job. And the stuff is always interesting. It's always changing. And there's always kind of new projects that are coming along. So it's just very, very interesting and dynamic.
Absolutely. And I really want to talk about this small team, big team, because it sounds like you've had your foot in both camps. How do you see data analytics today, from a wider perspective? Do you think that there's more to be done? Do you think there's a particular challenge or opportunity for big companies in this kind of stuff?
I suppose the small team, big team, I suppose, like, it's a conversation. It's actually a conversation I had with my boss a couple of times. So the small team is the case of going. The reason we've expanded is because essentially we have added a huge amount more. Our scope within the business has increased massively, and it's the level of projects that we can take on. So if you think, so I said we have about 70 people. Half of those are data scientists and data engineers. So they're on longer term projects. So you're kind of going, they're on projects that take 3 to 6 months generally, and that's the kind of work that they'll turn out. The other guys are kind of BI developers, and half of those BI developers are probably again on kind of longer term projects, more infrastructure and architecture that they're doing. So then you have probably about 15 people who are day-to-day answering tickets from the business and going, there's an awful lot of questions going up. And I think from a data perspective, there's kind of two ways going. If you give everybody the right tool, they can go and create whatever insights they want to get. So it's a case of going, everybody in a business should be a data professional. What we found is the Ryanair itself is such a lean organization that people don't have the time. So an awful lot of the time that we spent, which is structuring the data, being able to do the reports, the business units themselves are leaner because they're kind of going, that reporting functionality, etc. And they need to know something tomorrow. They can just ask us to kind of go, what's that answer? So like a large team, it has its pluses and minuses. It is at times difficult to manage people's expectations because you have a whole range of skill sets and experiences. So we have graduates, we have juniors, we've very, very senior, with people with 20 years experience, with people with 2 months experience. And so everybody's expectations are different. And with us being such a large team, we also have many nationalities. So we're based in 3 different, so we only have 14 people in Dublin, and the rest are split evenly pretty much between Poland and Madrid. So then there's a cultural thing going, how do you kind of keep that bit going? So as your team expands, there's various different, that can be an interesting topic at times. The other part as well for Ryanair is we generally don't do anything with consultancies, so we generally do all the work in-house ourselves. And because we do that, at times we just need the bodies to get the work done ourselves, and we generally find it's that classic that you have people. We would have people for about maybe 3 or 4 years. And the first 18 months, 2 years, it's all about their technical skills. And then it becomes about their domain knowledge. And as their domain knowledge becomes better and better and better, they add to the business in a much different way than just for their technical capacity. So you can have the business come and talk to a developer and bounce an idea, and they go like, oh yeah, I've done so much stuff work in this area that I can kind of talk to you and give you advice and let you know what direction you potentially may need to go and look at stuff. But I suppose it's horses for courses, essentially. It's just like going, big team means that we can do more stuff. So for instance, we had one optimization engineer up to about a year ago. Then we got about another 3 or 4. And it just meant that we could start looking at optimization. So we've only ever expanded the team when we've had a need. It's not been a case of just expanding the team to expand it. It's been a case of expanding the team to meet a need, and generally the business is behind that. So it's been very successful. Like, I don't know how much bigger the team is going to grow, but it's a sign for me. It's a sign that the work that the team does is integral to what Ryanair do. And it's relied upon, and the business is happy to have that overhead of a large data team to make sure that they get what they need.
Yeah. So how would you? And I'm just playing hypotheticals now, and kind of devil's advocate almost. But once that team gets to a level that you would describe it as large, how do you reconcile those skills, or how would you go about doing that? Do you think, or how do you even prevent that from happening?
How do you mean? What would you mean in reconciling?
So
skills?
let's say we're talking about Ryanair, which is on the smaller side. Well, when you optimize, you're going to get bigger, right? And then those individuals are, in theory, they're going to play smaller parts because they're part of a larger team. Or do I have that wrong? Do you think?
I suppose because the way I know what you're saying. It's like some people could get lost in. It's like I'm lost in the weeds. It's just like, oh, I'm doing pieces of work that nobody ever sees. So what we have a tendency of doing is we generally don't start a project unless there's a minimum of 2 people working on it. So that means nobody's ever working on their own. So how we've gotten to has been trial and error. Like when we started with data scientists, that's the first. We used to start projects with 1 data scientist, and it just never worked out for us. As in the data scientists have, you'd be pulling. There's nobody to share the knowledge with. A fundamental part of the work people do is they need to have a back and forth with somebody going, I've tried this, I've tried that. So the first thing we kind of do is we make sure that there are every project has 2 people on it, essentially. We have each of the individual areas as team leads and the heads of. So you never have more than I think the maximum size is about 10. So pretty much just 10. Just the team leads every 10 people. We are big on office visits, so we encourage people to move. Like pre-COVID, it haven't really happened during COVID, but obviously pre-COVID, like historically, I would probably visit every office every month. So we're like, hey, I'm here, trying to have a chat, and I'd have a chat with everybody. And that used to work very well. I have a very strong team, and like a lot of it, to be true, is how do you not let people fall behind? It's like you have very strong team leads, and it's part of their job to go. Everybody is unique and individual. Everybody has different needs. How do we actually cater to that? We can for everybody, but the majority of people are quite happy. And why they're happy is generally because it's interesting work. They're given a decent tool set to work with, which is huge for a lot of people. So we are in both AWS, Azure, and GCP. So we have our toes in every one of the clouds, pretty much. So the people who are working, be it seniors or juniors, they recognize that the work they're doing is, from a technology point of view, cutting edge. They're learning, and the thing is, they continue to know they're learning. And then when we do, unfortunately, have people who leave the company, they all get promoted and they all get really good jobs elsewhere. So they're kind of going like, I'm learning a valuable skill set. So they're kind of going, what I'm being told to do or what I'm being asked to do is to my benefit. I think we were joking in the office, like it can take us up to 6 months to hire somebody. So we generally hire for personality and smarts, because for us the sense of team is massively important, and because we have a lot of people who kind of engage with, I'm a member of a team, I can turn around. It doesn't matter how junior I am. I can turn around to the most senior person and go like, "Hey, can you give me a hand?" And nobody has an issue with that, and that's kind of how we make sure that nobody's left behind. We're a very strong sense of team.
That's really interesting because, we all know that data scientists and good data people are in high demand right now. But I think a lot of the conceptions of data scientists being these guys who sit in the dark with 10 screens, those days are long gone. These guys can, they have this clout that they can leverage. Like you said, they can come and get the skills and they can pick and choose where they want to be, essentially. So it's really important for executives to really be able to keep and retain that talent. And some of the, like, for example, in some of the ways that you said. Specifically, actually, what role do you think that data analytics leaders play in these transformations? You mentioned that you're going through your own optimization with Ryanair at the moment as your own transformation. Maybe you can answer it through that lens.
I suppose we think. I suppose in Ryanair, I wouldn't say necessarily it's been a transformation. It's been kind of an evolution, essentially. We're always trying to find the best way of doing things, and we're quite happy to pivot and go like, yeah, as I said at the start, somebody was using 3,000 Excel files, and somebody pointed out, going, actually, there's a better way of doing that. So the leadership part, I think, number one is we have trust. So our guy, so like, it's, you talk about a data scientist. So a data scientist, you don't just become you aren't just a data scientist. You need to learn. And actually, when you think about a data scientist, for a lot of data scientists would say that the most important bit about being a data scientist is getting all your data together. So we have guys whose skill set is purely as data scientists, and they try and start a project, and they're going like, I spent 3 weeks doing ETLs. And they're going like, and then they're going like, and I'm still getting weird numbers, and go like, we'll go talk to one of the guys who builds ETLs. And then the data science go like, oh yeah, I'm not a man and I'm not a person on an island. And it's like, I go back to like the core things that we found is, and I will give the example of the optimization engineers. So we've hired probably hired 5 or 6 optimization engineers in the last year, and none of them are PhD level. And one of them went to me. I said, do you enjoy it? He goes, yeah, I do. I really like it. And I was like, why? He says, I said, I never thought I'd work as an optimization engineer. Because as you say, like, there's a very distinct skill set between an optimization engineer and a data scientist. He's like, I always thought I was going to work as a data scientist. He goes, well, I'm actually using what I did my PhD in. He goes, and even better, he goes, when I build something, I said, you use it. Like, it's a very strange. For me, it's very strange that if I was to build something, somebody would throw in the bin. But for a lot of the guys, and this is in the Spanish office, they were kind of going like, yeah, I built something and it's used, and I can see the impact on the business, and that's very motivational for a lot of people. It's a case of like, you can go into some large companies, and you're so many levels away, and you're doing a little bit, and it adds, and you're going like, well, what difference does my bit do? Whereas you will have, we have data scientists, and they're going like, yeah, my project, I talk to the business regularly, I get the feedback from the business regularly, and I see it in use. And it's a very powerful tool. And generally, like, we have an okay churn rate, but yeah, like, it's a dog eat dog world at the moment. Like, salaries are going through the roof in all markets, and we try and make sure that we meet most people's, like, as I said, great sense of team, nice place to work, decent salaries, and they're using a tool set that is keeping them at the top of the market. So if they do go looking someplace else, and when we lose people, it's a sad day, but life goes on, and if somebody's moving on to a better job, we're always very happy with them. And yeah, I think people see that kind of going like, there's no kind of like, I can't believe people are leaving. It's just the way of the world. And as long as we keep building a team, and having work that's interesting and have trust in the business, it keeps most people, they're 3 or 4 years, 5 years. It keeps most people interested.
And this is interesting as well, because obviously you're now probably hiring people through the lens of your current, as you said, evolution. So what are the qualities of leaders that you look for in these people that you're hiring?
Curiosity. We, as I said earlier, we have a tendency of interviewing for, personality, and smarts. But we like to hire, a team is many constituent of different parts. So not everybody we hire wants to do the same thing. So an awful lot of developers are quite happy just to be given a task, and on I go with the task. but we try and mix that with trying to get people to go like, well, do you want to take ownership of stuff? And then guys will kind of go as they get a bit more experience in their roles, to go like, yeah, I'll take a bit more ownership of what's going on. And then, you know, as you go up, it's trying to get people to, you know, you identify your key performers and kind of go like, well, do you want to start, you know, looking after more complex problems? Do you want to start managing teams? And that's kind of how we, you know, it's kind of, you know, actually I was having a conversation today with the team to go like, it's the end of year reviews now starting. So part of the end of year review is like, you tell me what you want to do. Because everybody has different goals. Everybody has different things. You know, it's possible to be, you know, an individual contributor. And, you know, we try and make that happen for a lot of people. But we also, the people who want to be leaders and who want to move forward, we'll sit down and kind of coach them and go, you know, everybody needs to find their leadership style to start off with. It's like what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for everybody. But we would do a bit of coaching with that to kind of going like, you know, I do stuff in a specific way, and I will go like, this works for me because of who I am. It may not work for you. And it's just like going, you know, when, you know, we give feedback to people going like, you know, there's a lot of back and forth to go like, you know, try this, try that. Like I'd have the kind of same feedback from my boss. Like you go like, you could do that, but you could do that a little bit better. So it's like it's a continuous conversation going on within the team all the time. So and it's back to that sense of team. It's like people feel like, yeah, when I say something, I'm heard. And I think a big part of being a leader is hearing people, because if you can't just continuously being, you know, giving it waffle, you need to actually listen to what people are saying, because it's how we change what we do as a team. As I said earlier, we know projects generally have, you know, they have two people working on them. That was some feedback from the data scientists when they were kind of going, just one person on a project doesn't make any sense. It's just like, when you're asking me for updates, you're asking me where this is, where that is, and I'm always going, oh, you know, I'm running into problems, etc. Because I'm running into problems because I'm on my own, and if I get stuck, who do I find, etc. So, and the team itself, how we built and what types of people we've hired, as a lot of it has been through internal feedback. Guys go, this doesn't work, this does work. How can we make stuff better?
Yeah. And more for you personally, as the head of the data analytics function and communicating that to the rest of the business, how important do you think are the soft skills side of things in terms of, in general, the ability to build these relationships with non-data leaders in the organization?
I think it's hugely important. And the funny thing is, like, a lot of say my relationships with the business have been built through my team. So you will have a different department and they'll have raised a ticket, and one of my guys will have gone and answered the ticket and produced something that the business is really, really happy about. And then they, I'll bump into somebody else's manager and they go like, oh, such and such designed the report, we're really happy with it. So then the kind of conversation will be like, well, what else can we do for you? So it's so the soft skills, I suppose, the soft skills are Ryanair works slightly differently at times in regards to, if I say soft skills, if something makes sense, it generally gets done. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know that's a bit weird. Like it's been really important to take the business on a journey and to go, we're not full of BS. It's just like, when we come in and do something, it makes sense. We're not trying to, we're not just doing a research. We're not, and I think a lot of things people fear with data scientists, that it's just going to be kind of an academic exercise. It's like, when we do something, we kind of, I will always say to the guys, like, do the simplest first. You need to do something that the business understands. So that builds trust. And like, I think that's the key thing that we have with the business and the soft skill is trust. So it's this open communication that they can go, data science sometimes is, I use this algorithm, it does A, B, and C, and it's just a bit of a black box. So you just need to trust the results. So we have a tendency of, one of my BI devs would say, he goes, most data science projects can start with a couple of case statements, if this, then that. And by walking through that process with the business, they kind of go like, okay, I understand what you're doing. And once they understand, they kind of go, I get on board and I can see the results. And it's that kind of openness to and allow them to challenge us, because sometimes we build something, they go like, that doesn't make any sense. but they won't be going, but that's not because you don't understand this, that's because you've taken a different interpretation of what you're doing. So yeah, and that's, I'd say it's the human interaction. This is like, we're not just, an IT team. Like people will, as I said, like people will ask for developers by name. They'll go, can I have such and such? Like, yeah, they'll do some, it's, and that's kind of been where the soft skills will come. It's just like, by getting the team to buy into what we're doing as a team, and they're kind of the salesman for the team when they're talking to the business, and that's kind of, that's kind of what has actually done for us. I think that's.
And trust is huge, as you said. A really good way to build trust is to hear people out, listen to them, but also give them ownership and give them an investment into it. What do you think, more so outside of the data function, what are the best questions to ask to build trust? So in other words, what is your approach when you're approaching key stakeholders and trying to build a good relationship with them so they trust you and you trust them?
We generally don't try and force ourselves upon them. So it's not like we're driving an agenda. So our agenda generally is to help people. And we generally are kind of going like, in what way can we help you? And sometimes it's the case that the business will start off on one path and we'll go like, cool, we hear you, we see you, we can do that, but we think we can do this better in a different way. And it is about, actually, a key thing for us is producing results. We are only as good as what we produce. So it's a case of everything we produce for the business, we need to make sure that we double check, triple check that the numbers, etc., add up, and when we produce it to the business, it makes sense. And that's kind of like the key thing that we kind of make sure that we sometimes late with projects. Bless you. We're sometimes late with projects. But it's the constant conversation. Like, I know I'm probably fluffing some of these questions in regards to like how the team really does work is like, and as I said at the start, we use Teams. People just drop into Teams, drop you a message and go, what's this, what's that, what's this? And because it's a continuous feedback loop, it just builds trust. And because nobody is hiding anything. So if we make a mess on numbers, we go like, we did something wrong there. We see it. We're going to fix it. And the business is kind of going like, yeah, you're honest. You're telling us what you're doing. We understand what's going on. We've had feedback. We've had input. Off we go. So like there are certain departments in the business that are not that keen on us at the moment. So when you're talking about how do we work with them, we need to find common ground. And finding common ground and where we can help them is the biggest thing. And it takes a bit longer. With some departments are far more skeptical, and some departments just want whatever help they can get. So it's kind of finding that the common ground with each of the different departments, and find like some people are a little bit scared when they hear about, I'm going to come in and automate something. They're automatically going, that sounds a bit weird. You're going to automate my job. What does that mean for me? So we have that conversation. It's like when people hear automation, they automatically go, "Ooh, job losses." When it's not. No. It's just like, no. You can focus on a value add, because if your job is you come in on Monday morning, you look at an Excel spreadsheet, and you do the same thing every week, then that's not really adding to your enjoyment of your job. Let us work with you, automate it, and you go do the value add parts of your job.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what you say, right? You have to find a problem that they would like to be solved, or that they don't know that needs to be solved, but would be useful to be solved. This is interesting. Can you give some examples of this? I'm really interested in the trust piece of where this played a role in you as a professional in your career, whether it's with Ryanair or in your previous roles.
I suppose the trust part is like, I suppose for me, it's just simplicity. It's like, do what you say you're going to do when you're going to do it. And we've all worked in organizations where there's a huge amount of politics going on, and like we're kind of we're kind of a little bit of a step outside that, because essentially data is generally a support function in every organization. We're here to support the business. And we made that quite clear to the business, like, we're not going to do something you don't want to. We're not going to try and get around this. It's like, what do you want to do? And it's, sometimes people don't want to do anything. But then, we can kind of go, like, a big thing for us is, say, our ticketing system. We get so many tickets in, you can start to see trends, and you can go like, we've seen you looking to do the same thing about 10 different ways. Here's a solution we think, and then we go like, oh, that's not bad. Let's move away with that. But like the trust thing, like, and there's a big thing from the whole working from home at the moment. So trust is seeing people face to face, to be honest. There's a fair bit of having bumping, no longer bumping, seeing a person in the canteen or in the corridors and having a conversation, and it's having those everyday interpersonal interactions that kind of goes, oh yeah, they know what they're on about. They're a decent person. They don't, there's no grander plan behind what they're planning to do, and it's a case of I would say I wouldn't say there's anybody that doesn't trust us, because our job is to produce the numbers. It's the business's job to produce the insights. So if you think like we're neutral when we're producing something, we go like, you asked us, these are the parameters you gave us, that's what you're asking for, that's what it says. It's up to you to do what you want. We're not writing papers or etc. kind of going critiquing how business units work. We leave that up to themselves to do.
That's super interesting, because from this conversation, I kind of see you as the middleman of the organization between your own team, but also the wider business. But how do you perceive your role?
My role is granting annual leave and signing off on expenses. My role is, I am the salesperson. Like, a lot of I am the salesperson for the team. When you say middle, there's a word I was thinking, like we're kind of like the translator. So even the devs would be they'll translate what the business is thinking to technical. So it's a case of we never really want from a business user, oh, here's a solution. We're kind of going like, oh, tell us what the problem is. We'll think about the solution with you. But if you come to us going, oh, here's a very narrow solution, we're generally going like, oh, that may not actually work for everything you want. So we are kind of I think you could call us, we're the sounding board. So a lot of requirements come to us not fully formed. So the business is kind of going like, I kind of have an idea what I want to do. I'll open a ticket with kind of the ideas, and this is when I'm going to go back to that. We're not massive on, say smaller things. You don't have to have a big detailed requirements list, which is good and bad. But it's a case of when we're a sounding board for the business, so they're going to, I'm trying to do this, and they'll sit with a developer and they go like, does this make sense? And and between a couple of conversations, they come out going like, okay, that's exactly what I want to do. Let's go and do that. So yeah, I think it's fair to call us a sounding board for the business. In other areas, say if we talk about optimization, we are leaders. So we are the guys who will go, do you know what? We've spent years here. We're looking at what's going on. We totally can see what the markets are doing, and here's an area that if we focus on it, we can definitely make an impact on how Ryanair works. So in I would say in some areas we're leaders, and that's purely because of our interactions with the business. We understand what the business is looking for, and then we understand our technical skill sets, what we can do, and potentially what's not being leveraged, and therefore we can kind of go like, this is something that you may not have thought of, but this is something we definitely should do. And then in Ryanair, it works very quickly. You write a memo, a page, explaining why you want to do it, what's the benefits of it, and then somebody goes like, sounds like a good idea. Let's see what we can get out of that as a POC.
You make a very difficult job sound very easy.
I don't think there are very many jobs that are difficult. Like I think you make life as difficult as you want it. So we don't want. So how would I say this? So we have made life difficult in our team at times. So we went to a stage going, everybody used to open tickets, and we used to do daft things. So you'd open a ticket and we'd go like, yeah, we'll do that, take 5 days. And we'd have a backlog of like, 100 tickets. People are going, I want that ticket, I want that ticket done. When's that? And you're going to go, oh, I don't have enough people to do that. So we went to a stage where we were kind of going like, this is just stupid. And now we had to introduce process to kind of go like, that's ridiculous. It's like going, you can't just have a brain fart and go, can you spend a couple of days working on it? It's like you actually need to think about it, and how that was it. Like, and I think showing how Ryanair has come quite focused on data is that it actually came from the CEO, from Eddie, and he was just like going, it's a valuable resource. They're being wasted on doing stupid things. So we introduced an actual approvals process that wasn't just the tickets approved. So and I'm going to have to go to this meeting after this. So essentially every other week, I sit down with the CEO and my boss, and we go through the new tickets that have come through and go if they're relevant or if they're not. And it's kind of like, so you have the CEO of Ryanair buying into it, so he's kind of going like, that's relevant, that's not relevant, I want to know more information on that. So it's as I said, like, it's been an evolution to make it is, you're right, it is a difficult job. And you can't, but we try to make it as easy as possible. And how we try to do that is, you never really just create a process for process sakes. You look at how the business works, and you're going to go, how does the process work for the business, rather than how does the process dictate what the business does. And that way, yeah, it's like there are some very difficult days, but the majority of them, when you have everybody pointing in the right direction, it's just making sure you keep it on trim to go in the right direction.
Well, awesome. Well, Michael, thanks so much for the conversation. I've learned a lot about Ryanair, about yourself, and about the data analytics function. One last question. What advice would you give for aspiring leaders in data and analytics?
Forget it's data and analytics. Being a leader doesn't matter what you do. And I've actually had this conversation with one of our Scrum Masters. So she was like, what kind of books do you read? I said, I don't read books on Scrum Masters. I don't read books on leadership. You kind of have to, as I said, you kind of have to find your own, like I read a lot of books on history. You kind of have to find your own kind of skill set. You need to find out what works, what doesn't work. And the stuff that I talked about, which is, if you're a leader, define what's important to you. What's important to me is that my team is happy, that I make sure that I hire the best people, that I try and keep them, that I keep them motivated, that there's trust between me and my team and the business. As a leader, I make sure that we produce high-end results. So and that's the thing, as I say, I'd say from my data, if you go with specific data analytics, it's like going, you're only as good as the numbers you're producing. If you're producing reports that are inaccurate, etc., you're kind of, you're chipping away at that bit of trust that you have every bit, that you have. And it's being a leader, enjoy it.
And trust is valuable currency, not to be lost lightly.
Yeah, like I think there's a lot of simple things. It's like, do what you say you're going to do. Do it when you say you're going to do it. Treat people with respect. Be honest. Be truthful. Kick people when you need to kick them. This is like going like the other side of it is like, my job is not always not everything I do is nice work. Sometimes there are some pretty nasty conversations that have to be had, but it's a case of going, as long as there's trust and you respect people, it makes those tough conversations an awful lot easier. So I'd say it's, leadership, I should never, I think, be confined to what you do. It should be a case of how you do it. So it's like, I work in data analytics. I could work in a supermarket and still be a leader. It doesn't necessarily have to be data analytics. You'd still want to see the same things from your leaders. And have a joke or two. We use humor a huge amount on my team, I have to say. Unfortunately, because there are not a massive amount of native English speakers, a lot of my jokes get lost. But I'm working on that. A lot of my jokes, I have to explain them, and then they lose a lot of their punch.
Amazing. Well, Michael, again, great to have you on the show, and we hope to have you on again soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time, Paul.